per year. And there is possibility of producing more oil if maize hybrids with higher oil content in the germ is developed. Because in the future, these type of varieties can be developed which contain more oil in the germ, endosperm. Then coconut oil is another secondary source. India is second largest producer of coconut with 15% area and 21% production of the world. Area is 2.18 million hectares, but productivity levels are very low. And about 6 to 6.5 lakh ton oil is produced, 30% edible and 70% non-edible use. Further scope to increase area in Maharashtra, Odisha, West Bengal, Bihar, Gujarat, and Northeast India. And there is possibility to double productivity by replanting of old plantation with new yielding varieties along with standard crop management practices. And about 1 million tons of coconut oil can be produced by 2050. So there is a lot of scope for this important coconut oil. Tree-borne oil seeds are also there. More than 50 species there in the tree-borne TBOs, which can be used for the oil production, like neem, pongemia, jatropha, simaroba, sal, maua, tumba, silk cotton, dupa, salvadora, okum, chiru, olive, mango, kernel, jojoba, kusum, tung, and wax trees. These trees can be planted on the wasteland or on degraded lands, and they can be used for the oil production. Estimated potential of TBOs is more than 5 million ton with 1 million ton oil. Collection is 8 to 10 lakh tons and less than 1.5 lakh ton oil is produced. Scattered plantation of most of the TBOs and short collection period of 4 to 6 weeks before rainy season are major constants for these TBOs. And tree improvement for yielding varieties, location-specific technologies, value addition are important priorities for the TBOs in India. Scope to extend TBOs to degraded wastelands for greening of these gray areas and can play a major role in meeting industrial requirement of vegetable oils. So these type of trees should be promoted to increase the oilseed production and decrease the import of oils from other countries. So these are the projected production of supplementary source of vegetable oils by 2050. By 2050, this is the projected for rice bran oil, 22.4 lakh ton, cottonseed oil, and coconut oil, oil palm, TBOs, corn oil, and total 10.6 million ton. So by 2050, this much can be contributed. 10.6 million ton can be contributed from by the supplementary sources of oil seeds. Then there are exploitable yield reservoirs. And first is this technology of yield gap. There is huge yield gap for all the oil seeds because they are mainly grown in constant resource constant areas, in rainfed areas, and that's why there is yield gap is also very large. We know that potential yield obtained on research station that we call the potential yield. Yield obtained on in the demonstration plots, that is called farm yield, and yield obtained on farmer's field, that is farmer's yield. So the gap among these different type of yields is calculated. In the first yield gap, research station yield minus demonstration plot yield. So this gap is mainly due to difference in environment that cannot be managed in the farmer's field. At the research station, we can manage the environment, but at farmer's field, under the demonstration, it is difficult to manage the environment, and that's why there is the gap, and that gap is we call is yield gap first. Yield gap second is also calculated on the basis of the farm demonstration yield and actual farm yield. The gap this gap is mainly due to biological, soil and water, or physiological, genetic, socioeconomic constants. There are many constants that contribute to this gap, and this gap should be bridged. This gap is very high in all the areas. In mustard, it is 37%. So this type of gap, this yield gap too, should be bridged in the coming years to increase the productivity. And according to the constraints, we can classify gaps again according to the constraints like agronomic gap, socioeconomic gap, institutional gap, and mixed gaps. There are so many factors for yield gap, like a biological or agronomic gap. This is a biological or physical constraint like climate, soil, water, weeds, etc. That are very difficult to manage. Under research systems that can be managed like soil, we can use soil management, water management, weed management. These practices, these technologies can be developed and given to the farmers. So this type of yield gap can be managed. Then another gap is a technology management gap. This is mainly related to the technologies, like what are the tillage practices we are following, like resource conservation technologies or smart agriculture technologies and raised bed planting. These are the tillage related technologies, different yielding varieties, and in terms of high oil containing varieties. Nutrients management is also important, balanced nutrient management. This is integrated pest management, post-harvest management, etc. So these technologies should be given to the farmers. And then socioeconomic gap. This is mainly related to the farmers' status. They may be poor, resource poor, and their farmers' traditional knowledge is also important. And then family size, household income, expenses, investments. These are important factors, socioeconomic factors that contribute to yield gap. Then institutional policy gaps are also there, like government policies developed but not reached to the farmers. Farmers are not aware of them, like credit facility not available to the farmers. Input supply like fertilizers not reached to the farmers' doorstep. Land tenure, extension, market research and development. These constraints can contribute to yield gap. Then technology transfer and linkage gap is also important. Technology developed at research institute or university but not reached to the farmers. This type of gap may be there. So unless and until it is not reached to the farmer, then it is of no use for the farmer, and the benefits or the benefits can be obtained from the technology will remain. Then what are the strategies can be used for the manage of yield gaps? So as I mentioned earlier, that ecological zoning. So ecological zoning based on the soil and climatic factors, and based on that factors we can divide the area in different zones on suitability basis, and we can classify them accordingly. Like states can be classified, districts can be classified. In the states, high potential area and high gap. Such type of area should be identified. If there is potential is very high, but yield gap is also very high. Then second category is high potential, low gap. These area should be identified and they should be given more emphasis for the production of a particular crop. Another category may be low potential, high yield gap, low potential, low yield gap. So these type of areas should be identified at state level, and the policies or technologies or whatever resources should be given priority or should be given to the farmers as per their classification. Suppose we should emphasize more on the high potential, low gap area. Potential is high and gap is low. So we should concentrate more on in these areas to increase the production of a particular crop. Districts can be classified high spread, high yield. High spread crop is spreading very high, and yield potential is also high. High spread but yield is low. Low spread, high yield, and low spread, low yield. So the actions should be taken according the classification or a classified unit of the state and districts. Then these are the exploitable yield reservoirs in oilseeds. This is an old figure and based on calculated in 2011-12. So the actual national production and expected production, this is the exploitable. There is very large difference. If you see the groundnut, then this much of difference is there. Soybean, very large gap for the actual production and expected production. So these gaps should be minimized. Power of technology on productivity enhancement in oilseeds. If you want to see the, because sometimes somebody asks that what is the impact of your technology on the yield or production of any crop. So we can say here, we can see here in 2085-86, the yield was of groundnuts 1719 kg, but in 2003-4, it has increased to 1364 kg per hectare. So this is the power of technology only. That's why the production or yield levels has increased significantly, doubled in many crops. In rapeseed mustard, it is almost doubled. Soybean, sunflower. Likewise, the technologies played a big role for to increase the this production and productivity. Then meeting India's fed nutrition by 2050. This is projected figures. In 2050, the population will be 1685 million, and per capita fed needs will be 29 gram per day per capita. And fed needs for this population 17.84 million ton. Productivity by supplementary sources 10 million ton that already we have calculated. Then balanced to be produced from the annual oilseeds 7.84 million ton. 2021 oilseed production is 35.95 million ton, and more than 10 million ton oil is contributed by the secondary sources. So the country can easily meet the fed needs of Indian population by 2050. So coming to the final conclusion, India can easily produce 17.84 million ton of vegetable oil by 2050 to meet the nutrition needs of projected population of 1685 millions. If we follow all the technologies, all the resources, all the policy support, then we can easily reach this target by 2050. And present level of vegetable oil consumption has already exceeded the nutritional needs by large margin and is likely to go up further in response to income growth and low prices. World over, vegetable oil consumption is both income and price elastic. Any unbridled increase in per capita vegetable oil consumption in future will be a formidable challenge on the carrying capacity of Indian agriculture to support oilseed production. Because the consumption increase the domestic requirement of oilseeds, and if consumption increase, its requirement will increase, and it will be very difficult to meet out those requirements in the future. So we should also create awareness among the population that we should the recommended level of that fats and oil should be consumed per day per capita. Excess use should be minimized, and so that the sustainable development can be achieved. So with this, I thanks to you, to all the participants, to the organizers, and any question I will be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Jat sir. And if anyone wants to ask anything, you can open your mic, unmute yourself, and ask the question to our expert. And if there is no question, and if you want to ask it later on, then you can write us on our WhatsApp group and we will extend it to the expert. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for this very informative presentation, which is blended with the total present scenario, scope, and possibilities. And I think you have made us travel to the all sphere of the oil form, oil seed of the India. Definitely, this presentation is very useful not only for the people associated with the education, research, and the extension activities, but for the policymakers too. You have shown a total track of the future for the development of oilseed crop. Thank you very much, sir. We are really grateful to you for giving your precious time on a very short notice for us. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Now I request Ms. Ananya Singh to extend a vote of thanks from all of us. Ananya.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Chancellor Sir, Pro-Chancellor Sir, Vice-Chancellor Sir, Registrar Sir, Pro-Vice-Chancellor Sir, guest of the Speaker of this session, Dr. R.S. Jat Sir, Additional Director Sir, HODs, and the participants of Faculty Development Program on this 6th day and 8th technical session of eFDP of 7 days. I, Ananya Singh, present a very sincere thanks to Dr. R.S. Jat Sir, Principal Scientist at ICAR-DRMR, Bharatpur, Rajasthan, for joining with us and sharing with us his valuable and very knowledgeable presentation on the topic of oilseed status and opportunities. So discussed about oilseed scenario in the world and in our country, its importance in humans' lives, and also gave a brief about the different oilseed crops, its productivity, its production, and its statistics, and several other aspects related to oilseeds. Sir, this presentation was very fruitful and productive for all the participants, and we have learned a lot from it. I'm highly thankful for your contribution in this 7-day FDP and for your precious words and for your time and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you, sir. Thank you to all the participants and thank you to the organizers.
Thank you, Ananya. And it is indeed, sir, our words are not capable to express our deep sense of gratitude to you for accepting our invitation on a very short notice. And we accept this kind of affection from your side in future also. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar.
Namaste, namaste.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to you also.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
हम अपने पार्टिसिपेंट्स को एक इम्पोर्टेंट अनाउंसमेंट करना चाहते हैं कि आज हमारा जो शाम का सेशन है वो 4 बजे से शुरू होगा। अनलाइक जैसे हम अभी तक चलाते आ रहे थे, हमारा आज का सेशन 4 बजे से शुरू होगा और ये होंगे श्री श्याम बिहारी गुप्ता जी, कृषि कृषक संबंधी आयोग उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार के सदस्य, और हम लोगों से चर्चा करेंगे कृषि की चुनौतियां, समाधान और उसकी भविष्य की संभावनाओं के ऊपर। तो आप सभी से निवेदन है कि आप 4 बजे, क्योंकि ये पिछली बार से थोड़ा समय बदल रहा है हमारे इस अगले सेशन का, तो थोड़ा सा अलर्ट रहेंगे, ग्रुप पर ध्यान रखेंगे, तो आपको ये सूचनाएं मिलती रहेंगी। हमारा आने वाले कल का 13 तारीख का अंतिम दिन है इस eFDP प्रोग्राम का और पूरी तरीके से बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण दिन भी है। हमारे कल के 2 सेशन होंगे और पहला सेशन जो कल दिन का पहला सेशन जो होगा वो, और हमारी इस पूरी eFDP का आखिरी का टेक्निकल सेशन होगा, उसे संबोधित करेंगे पद्मश्री भारत भूषण त्यागी जी, जिनको पूरा देश बहुत अच्छे से जानता पहचानता है एक प्रोग्रेसिव फार्मर के रूप में, एक सफल एफपीओ के बनाने वाले के रूप में, और वो पूरे देश में ही नेचुरल फार्मिंग और उससे जुड़े हुए बहुत सारी जो विधियां हैं उनको सिखाने के लिए पूरे देश भर में जाते हैं। तो भारत भूषण त्यागी जी हम सबके बीच में होंगे कल 12 बजे से। कल का भी समय थोड़ा अलग है, कल 12 बजे से भारत भूषण त्यागी जी हम सबके बीच में होंगे और उसके बाद 2 बजे से हमारा समापन सत्र वैलिडिटी सेशन होगा, जिसको संबोधित करने के लिए कमिश्नर हॉर्टिकल्चर, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर एंड फार्मर वेलफेयर, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हम लोगों के बीच में 2 बजे से होंगे। साथ ही साथ इस यूनिवर्सिटी के IFTMU यूनिवर्सिटी के वाइस चांसलर, रजिस्ट्रार सर और विभिन्न स्कूलों के डायरेक्टर्स, HODs हम लोगों को ज्वाइन करेंगे। तो आप सब लोगों से निवेदन है कि अगर किसी का कोई सेशन पहले का किसी कारणवश छूट भी गया हो तो कृपया कल के दोनों सेशन में जरूर रहें, विशेष रूप से हमारे शाम के वैलिडिटी सेशन में। आप सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद इस सेशन से जुड़ने के लिए। अब हम लोग 4 बजे मिलेंगे श्याम बिहारी गुप्ता जी के सेशन के साथ।